There comes a time in every life when we must make decisions. We must make choices about who it is that we'll become and what it is that we'll do as we move forward. And inevitably, there will always be these forks in the road, these challenging points, these moments that really push you to your limits. And if you reach one of those points, you have to figure out, well, what's the problem? And then, of course, what's the solution? And the greatest challenge that many of us face is figuring out what the real problem is. At first, the problem seems like the problem, but sometimes you'll find that the real problem is your version of the solution. I'm going to say that again. At first, it seems like the problem must be the problem. But upon further investigation, you will often find that the problem is not the problem. The problem is your solution. I want to welcome you guys all into another episode of Hope Rising. I am excited to join you for another day. I want to encourage you guys, leave comments. I'm live right now, so if you're watching this, let me know that you're here. If you're watching on the replay, go ahead and just type in replay for me. But we got to get into, as we have started moving into a new year, as we are now 21 days in, what are your problems? What are the things that are holding you back from greatness? And better question, what are the solutions that you will choose to overcome those things? It's interesting because I mentioned in a recent episode that I have found myself over the last several months in one of the most anxiety filled, anxiety ridden seasons I've had in a long, long time. I don't say those words lightly. I'm not saying that because it's something to get a whole bunch of, oh, I feel so bad for you, Maurice, because I don't really think the majority of people in life feel bad for you per se anyway, right? Like you're busy doing your own life. So that's not the point of me sharing. Instead, I share what this journey's been like because lately it's been hard. My mind has been racing. My thoughts have felt out of control. Have tried to turn to my favorite scriptures. I've tried breathing, taking walks, and the crazy just keeps coming out. And I keep feeling like maybe the anxiety is the problem. Maybe the thing that I'm worried about is the problem. There's all these things I'm perceiving as problems. And any time that you find yourself in those seasons, at first you'll be overwhelmed. At first you'll be overtaken. At first you'll be overcome and overwrought by whatever it is that seems to be consuming you. But at some point, we have to have something inside of ourselves that says, enough is enough. I can't just keep getting overwhelmed. I can't just keep getting knocked down. Now I have to figure out the most sustainable and steady and consistent way of getting up and then staying up. And it's at those places, it's at those junctures that we learn the most about ourselves. And what I have been finding in my journey that I wanted to share because maybe it'll help you with yours is that I always go back to the remembrance that the problem that I think is the problem is very seldom the problem. I've spent many years as an addiction counselor, sitting in front of people who are battling alcoholism, who are battling drug addiction. They have different things that are challenging them. And when you sit in front of a person who is battling these types of things, there's certain language that they speak because of their experience. If you ever meet a person and they've been through alcoholism, they've been through AA and things like that, and so people walk in and they talk about my drug problem, my alcohol problem, my drinking problem. And one of the things that I realized was one of the real ways that I was able to help people was by often breaking that belief system that they had inside of themselves when they thought my problem is my drinking problem. My problem is my drug addiction. I would often say to them, you don't have a drinking problem. You have a drinking solution. You don't have a drug problem. You have a drug solution. You're turning to these things to solve what it is that is messed up on the inside of you, to solve what it is that seems broken on the inside of you, to confront what it is that seems distorted on the inside of you. You're turning to something to solve your problem, and the problem is your solution causes more problems. So if the only thing you do is turn to the alcohol and the drugs to try to fix the problem, you'll find that you still have a problem. The underlying thing that was happening within you, happening around you, happening through you, is still happening after you put the bottle down, after you put the drugs down, after you put the sex down, whatever it is that you're turning to, thinking, well, this is my only problem. If I could just stop doing this, I'll be okay. No, the problem is that the problem still exists. Problems persist until we accurately identify what it is that is truly happening in and around and through us. I don't know who needs to hear that, but it's not just that you have a cussing problem. It's not that you just have an anger problem. It's not that you just have a porn problem. Whatever it is that you've identified recently in your life and said, I got this problem. See, the problem is not usually the problem. The problem you're looking at is often your solution to solve your problem. I feel stressed out. I feel overwhelmed. I feel anxious. Man, if I could just have some sex real quick. I feel overwhelmed. I feel frustrated. I feel so many things that I don't want to feel anymore. But if I could just, and whatever it is that you decide to turn to, when you want to stop doing that, you say, well, my problem is I can't stop. And you miss that the reason that you can't stop is your mind has now been programmed that this is the solution to your problem. And your brain is trying to solve the problem. And now you start putting all of your brain power into solving the problem that's not the problem, it's the solution to the problem. You're going to have to go deeper. You're going to have to go to a deeper place to find true resolution in your life. Lately, I've been saying, man, I've got an anxiety problem. My thoughts won't stop racing. My mind won't stop going crazy. I've got an anxiety problem. No, your problem, Maurice, is that there's some things that are going on in your thinking, in your reasoning, in your perspective, and your mind is trying to solve the problem. Your mind is trying to find a way to put the puzzle together. Your mind is trying to find a way to do something on the surface that can't be solved on the surface because you're going to have to go somewhere deeper to get real resolution. You don't have an anxiety problem. Your anxiety is trying to solve the problem. So what's the real problem? And oftentimes we find that it is something much more foundational that's truly taking place. It's something in your belief system. It's something in your perception, in your perspective. I've been thinking a lot about where Jesus says in Scripture, only believe and do not doubt. It's in the book of James where it says, do not be tossed about like a wave of the sea. How many times in my life have I asked God for wisdom? And then, after asking, just started to get a little bit wishy-washy. Not been willing to stand flat-footed and say, this is what God said, so I'll stand on it. This is what I believe, so I'll stand on it. No. See, the problem is that sometimes your beliefs have rival beliefs. I'm going to say that again. Oftentimes in life, your beliefs have rival beliefs. Maurice, what does that mean? If you have decided 2025. I believe this is the year that I will come up ahead. This is the year that I will accomplish something great. This is the year I'll be proud of myself. This is the year when I will not be stopped and I will not be shaken and I will not be moved off of the standard. If this is the year that you have decided that that is the belief you'll turn to, what you must also know is that there's other beliefs that also exist on the inside of you. There's other thoughts that we naturally have where you will believe on the inside of yourself, but it's also true this is probably the year I'll find a way to screw it up. This is another year where things won't go my way. This is another year where I'll end up disappointed by the end of the year. This is another year where I won't be able to handle the tragedy that's coming my way. There are rival beliefs on the inside of you. And if you're not careful, if those rival beliefs go unattended, unaffected, and unchallenged, they become your greatest problems. You want to know what your problem is? It's not what's happening to you, it's your perception of it. There's nothing that anyone in this earth can do to avoid challenges. Something's about to challenge what it is you really want out of this year. Something is about to push you to your limits. Something is going to set you off. There's going to be a phone call, a text messages, some breaking news. Something is going to happen that is going to push you to a place. It's inevitable for everyone this year. You didn't anticipate it. You didn't expect it. When you wrote down what you thought this year was going to look like, it wasn't in there. You just didn't see it coming. And when that happens, that thing will often trigger your alternative beliefs. It will trigger that thing inside of you that says, well, see, I knew this wasn't going to work out. And that thinking, that stinking thinking, that negative thinking that we all have becomes the vessel that the enemy then uses to try to get you out of purpose and off of the path that God has for you. You'll begin to tell yourself all the reasons you can't do what God says to do. You'll begin to tell yourself all the reasons that you can't stand up and can't move forward. It's fascinating. I was at church this Sunday, and I was sitting there, and there was this moment. I was telling my wife about it yesterday, and they were having like a praise break, and so the music's going, and everybody's dancing around and everything, and I was just having a moment of praying. And as I prayed, I heard the Lord say something so clear. He said, "You don't need to run. You only need to walk." You don't need to run. You only need to walk. And as I continue to just keep my eyes closed and pray, I saw a person, the image of a person, walking across the floor with their feet firmly planted on the floor. They never lifted their feet all the way off the ground. Their feet just kind of stayed, and they dragged their feet, but they moved forward. And did you know that if your feet stay on the ground for a long enough period of time on the right surface and you just keep moving forward, you will actually create static electricity. You can create an actual charge that when you touch a person, they get shocked. What would it look like in your life if when all of the rival beliefs started popping up on the inside of you, you said to yourself, well, I got one part of me that believes what God says. I got one part of me that believes what the Word says. I got one part of me that believes what I know can happen and what is possible in my life. And I got this alternative thing trying to tell me what I can't do and what I can't be and what I'm going to screw up, but I'm going to move forward anyway. I don't have to have the courage to lift my feet way high off the ground. I just need to stay steadily on the ground. Because if I stay planted on the ground but move forward, I'm going to have a way of eventually shocking my situation. I'm going to be able to put a charge into my situation. Even if my legs feel so heavy I can barely move them, that's okay. Me and them heavy legs about to move forward. All the doubts and all the worries and all the excuses that I have, sometimes they stay with you. So since they're with you, you might as well train them. Somebody needed to hear that today? I know that it's a great thought that what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of my negative thoughts and all of my negative beliefs and all of my negative things and I'm going to throw them to the side. But the scripture tells me what I have to do is take them captive. That means I'm about to be walking around with some prisoners. Some stuff may try to follow me, but if you gonna follow me, you're not gonna haunt me and hunt me. I'm gonna have you captive. I don't know who I'm speaking to today. Tell me if this is resonating with you. It's the thought that at some point in my life, if I'm full of doubt, full of questions, full of wonder, but I'm also full of faith, then I don't have to run. I don't have to believe that I have to take a leap of faith. I just have to be willing to move forward. And if my feet are on a solid foundation, one step at a time is going to lead to the shock to my situation. It doesn't mean the situation itself changes. Your problem isn't your problem. Your problem is the way you're trying to solve your problem. That complaining is not going to do it. The whining is not going to do it. Sitting and allowing all of the fears and anxieties and worries, it's not going to do it. The only way that you actually get to the other side of this thing is by fixing your thinking, fixing your beliefs, and trusting them enough to move with them. Do you really trust God? You do not find out if you believe God and you trust God on Sunday morning when the music sounds good and your belief system is the highest. That's not when you know if you believe God. You do not know if you believe God because of how you feel in the middle of your devotional, your everyday devotional. That's not how you know where your faith level is. Your faith level is determined by how you act, react, and interact when your faith is tested. It's when you get tried by the fiery furnace that you understand if you really trust God, if you really trust yourself in God and with God. Scripture says, I am the true vine, you are the branches. So that means that there's some alternative vines I could be connected to. I could get my sustenance from all the wrong places and it will make me spiral downward. Or I can be in God. I can be in Christ. My question for you today is, what is your greatest problem? And I see you guys are commenting today, by the way. I appreciate that. I see you guys. I haven't been able to read any comments the last several times I've been on, but I see you. Destiny, I see you. Marcus, my brother, I see you. Monicia, I see you. I'm so proud of you for everything you're doing on your show, man. You are just incredible. Selena, I see you. Prophetess Tara, I see you. I see so many of you guys, so just keep commenting. Bree, I see you watching. I appreciate you guys. But I just felt compelled to just get on today and just talk about, we got to figure out what our problems really are. What is the underlying issue? What are the underlying questions that you continue to ask that you just don't believe in the answers? What are the things that just persist and resist and won't go away? I was watching an interview recently, and it was a Navy SEAL. And he said when he went to what they call Hell Week, right? He said, when you go to SEAL training, basically they try to do everything that they can to make you break and make you quit. What's up, Pastor Sam? It's good to see you, brother. People, what they do is they enter into this training. And at the training, all of the tests are there to figure out what will make you quit, what will make you give up. They find your weaknesses physically, they find your weaknesses emotionally, mentally, and then they push you to your limits to find out, will you give up? And the interviewer asked the Navy SEAL, he said, so what is it that helped you keep going? He said, I decided I wasn't going to quit. And the guy would like took a pause, and he was like, okay, but there's got to be something more than that. Like something else played into your decision making. And the guy said, no, since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, and I had decided whatever happens, I'm about to be a Navy SEAL. So when I was in the midst of the tests and the trials, they said, do this. I shrugged my shoulder and said, okay, well, let's go. And my body was hurting and my mind was hurting and everything was hard, but I had already decided I was going to make it. That's it, Destiny. He decided. He made that decision. So now, whenever the next test came, he just had to shrug his shoulder and say, what's the next step forward? This ain't fun, but I can endure it. This ain't fun, but I'm built for it. How do you know you're built for it? Because you're in it. If you're in it, you can overcome it. If you're in it, you can get through it. Because no temptation will come upon you that God can't get you through and past. So the question is, when everything starts rocking and shaking and pressing you to your limits, what is your mind telling you? Is your mind saying, see, this is the proof I can't make it? Because if it is, that's your problem. The problem is not the shaking test. It's not the pressurized situation. It's not the thing that is rocking you to your core. That's not your problem. The problem is your mind telling you you can't make it. Instead of saying, if I'm in it, I can overcome it because I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. There is no situation you can't overcome. Now, don't get me wrong. You may take your lumps in the midst of it. You may hurt and have some tears that you cry in the midst of it. This may shake you to a place where you lose who you thought you were and find who you really are. See, there's some things that are going to happen in the midst of transition for everybody. When life shakes you and rocks you in a way, you will sometimes lose a few things. But I got to die daily to who I think I am to become more of who he's calling me to be. So in the midst of the rocking and the shaking, and I don't know who it is who's listening today, I see you, Pastor Sam. I see you. I see you. If you're a person who feels rocked to your core, you're looking at the thing that's rocking you thinking this is the problem. It's not. Jesus is standing in the midst of the wind and the waves, and Peter says, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come and I'll come. And Jesus says, well, come on then. And Peter starts walking towards Jesus on the water. The scripture says Peter, seeing the wind, he loses his courage. He loses that thing that said, I can make it to the other side. And just like that, he finds himself sinking. Was the problem the wind and the waves?
It was him.
Say it one more time, Naima.
It was him.
Now, my 5-year-old is sitting over here beside me. She said, no, it was him. She sees the lesson. It was him. But in the midst of our mess, sometimes it's hard to see. We really think it's the wind and the waves. Present company included. I'm not speaking to you all right now because somehow I'm better than you. I'm not talking to you right now, talking down to you or talking at you. I'm saying, if you missed the beginning, you can go back and watch it. I started the video by saying, lately I have found myself in the midst of the most anxiety-ridden season I've had in years. My brain has just been telling me what I can't do. There's no way we're going to get through this moment. There's these tests and these challenges, and they've been shaking me and rocking me. And I keep looking at the problem saying, my Lord, why aren't you making this go away? But here's the thing. Earlier in the Bible, Jesus had already made the wind and the waves obey him and stop. So if he wanted to make the wind and waves stop for Peter, he would have just stopped them. He didn't. He said, come on. If he hasn't made the wind and the waves stop in your life after all that prayer, after all that fasting, after all that consecration, after all those tears, if he hasn't made it stop, it's not going to just stop yet. So you're going to have to trust what God is trying to start in you. What is he trying to kickstart? What is he trying to spark on the inside of you? What is God trying to show you about you, or show you about him, or show you about the people around you that you thought were trustworthy? I saw Apostle Hoy was on here earlier. I don't know if he's still here. He said something to me one day. This was a couple months ago, and I've been holding it real tight. I said, Apostle, I don't know if I can trust this person. There's somebody, and I'm trying to figure out. They're new in my life. I'm trying to figure out if I can trust them. He said, don't. I said, what you mean? He said, don't put your trust in man. Love man. Put all your trust in God. Somebody else needed to hear it. He said, don't put your trust in people. Love people. But put all your trust in God. Sometimes in the midst of the moving and the shaking, we're trying to figure out how much trust we have in the water underneath our feet. This ain't about the water under your feet. This is about the God who the water obeys. This is not about your situation or your circumstances. This is about the God who brings you through your circumstances, who works all things together for the good. This is bigger than what you think it is. Your problem is not your problem. Your problem is what you think is the solution to your problem. I hope I'm helping somebody today. That's it, Michelle. Love people, trust God. And by the way, can I just say this? I might not be as religious as some of y'all, and some of y'all got like a spiritual superpower that I don't have, okay? I don't always trust God. My daughter went, I don't always trust God. I question God at all times. Sometimes I sit in prayer and I hear his voice and I go, no, see, I must have missed that because, oh, I must have got that wrong because. And then I tell myself, well, no, it's not God that I'm not trusting, it's me. It's my perception. It's my interpretation. That's the problem. Is it? Or is the problem that God is speaking and you're not trusting? That God is moving and you're not moving with him? That God is shifting and you're not shifting with him? Is the problem that you don't really trust God in the midst of your actions? Now, I'm the first one who will acknowledge it. I am a man of God. I am an apostle. I am standing here in front of you. I preach and I teach and I help people walk through their midst of their mess. But at the end of the day, I'm still learning to trust God. Can you acknowledge you struggle with it sometimes too? Your actions will show it if your words won't. The situations and the seasons of your life where you are actually trusting God, you'll see it because the fruit is coming. If you have been finding certain areas of your life are lacking fruit, it's probably because you are lacking the forward steps of faith. Do you really trust God? Do you really believe that God has your best in mind at all times? See, I'm saying some things to you right now that can seem countercultural and counter to what people will tell you, things like, well, if you trust God, nothing bad's going to happen in your life. Where do you see that in your Bible? Where do you see it? Because when I look in my Bible, I see people who have to go through hard times, who go through challenges, who go through things that you and I would not want to have to go through. And the consistent theme of whatever the circumstances, whatever the weather, whatever the problem, whatever the tragedy, the commonality that brings them through it is that God is consistent. Well, God would never let his children go through. Stop. You see all kinds of stories where God's people go through things. Sometimes because of their choosing, sometimes because of their action, sometimes because of the things that they wanted, or because they or what they didn't want, and sometimes it's the circumstances. But what the enemy meant for evil, God will use for his good. If you're just joining me today, I've been talking a lot about this concept that what you think is the problem is probably not your problem. I'm trying to do a little recap for those. I see some names who are joining me right now who haven't been here for a while. Ashley, it's good to see you. Congratulations on your event you're putting on. I hope you're putting another one together right now. Really proud of what you're doing in the entrepreneurial space. That's really awesome. I see you, Kelly. Kelly, I told you the other day, man, you always are blowing my mind with how you are just getting up early and grinding and just changing lives. Just keep going. Somebody just came on right now. This message, I promise you, is just for you. You just I'm not gonna say your name, but I see your name just popped on. This message is for you. I was talking about how people, I've spent so much time as a counselor, and people come to you and they say, well, I have this alcohol problem. I have this drug problem. I have this sex problem. I have, and they present to you what they believe their problems are. And over again, I say to people, your problem is not your problem. What you're presenting to me right now as your problem is actually your solution to your problem. Is the problem the alcohol you're picking up, or is your problem the thing that keeps happening in you or around you that causes you to feel like maybe the alcohol will solve it? Is the problem the drug, or is the problem the thing that is happening in or around you that is causing you to feel like you need to pick something up? I'm not saying that alcohol and drugs and sex addiction and all these other things that people deal with, I'm not saying those things aren't problems, but what I'm saying is you have a problem and you're turning to the wrong solution to fix your problem, which then gives you more problems. I don't care if you're a person, you've been dealing with food addiction. I've had a couple people I've worked with recently, and they say, every time my stress rises, every time my anxiety rises, I'm putting things in my body that I'm trying to soothe myself. I'm trying to comfort myself. My wife and I are guilty of that, by the way. We are stress eaters. That is a real thing. And so now you're poisoning yourself, trying to give yourself a little spike on the inside of yourself because you're feeling low. Maurice, why is that important? Because if you're really paying attention, you will recognize the solutions you are choosing to try to fix your problems. You're going to the wrong solutions. You're turning to the wrong solutions to fix your problems. You're believing that the situation is the issue. But what I can tell you is every issue and every situation was always coming. What doesn't always come is the courage to believe God. What doesn't always come is the belief that this too shall pass. That I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that you are more than a conqueror? Being more than a conqueror implies that you have conquering in you, but there's something else that you have that's available. You ever think about that? Wait, what does it mean to be more than a conqueror? Because a conqueror is one who can conquer. And you've already learned in your life you could conquer some stuff. You can be like Beyonce, you can slay some problems. What's it mean to be more than a conqueror? I would argue being more than a conqueror is someone who sometimes has situations that they could conquer the wrong way, and they will choose to just find the peace of God in the midst until God gives them his way of conquering things. Being more than a conqueror is a level up to where even when I'm not conquering yet, I'm already above it. Somebody else needed to hear that. Being more than a conqueror would mean that you're conquering even when you're not conquering. That's where I'm trying to be in my life. I'm not there yet. I'll tell y'all when I get there. I'm not there. Being more than a conqueror would mean that when I haven't conquered it yet, I've already conquered it. That something on the inside of me believes so deeply, trusts God so deeply, that I rest in his peace, and I rest in that part of me in my spirit that knows that I know that I know that I know that I'm good and I'm fine and I'm okay and I'm all right, even though it hasn't happened yet. See, now you're more than a conqueror. Now you're just a faithful believer in God. More than a conqueror. Someone who stands flat-footed when the world starts to run. More than a conqueror. David said to Goliath, listen, the enemy, the God is going to overtake you, but I'll fight the fight I need to fight. It's on God to be the conqueror. I'm more than that. I'm the son of the conqueror. I'm royalty. I'm the one who can stand in front of the situation I haven't conquered yet and rest in his peace. I'm not there yet. That's what I'm working towards. That's what my 2025 is all about. How do I rest in his peace when we haven't conquered yet? How do I conquer the voices of doubt and worry and stress and strife? How do I overcome that before we've overcome the physical problem? See, that's more than a conqueror. My cousin Frances is on right now. She said, more than a conqueror even before the manifestation. By the way, Francis, do me a favor for anybody who is watching. Can you please post the website to your conference? There's going to be a conference in Columbus, Ohio. It's about to be a beautiful one. This is the third year for it. And Francis, I want you to just post that. Some people are going to be watching later on, listening either on YouTube or listening on the official Hope Rising podcast. But I'll make sure I get the conference link in all of the sites.
Hi, Cousin Francis.
Cousin Francis, Naima says hi. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I have been on here already longer than I was trying to. The goal is try to do 20 minutes every time I jump on, but today I just felt that I needed to get this message all the way to the end. I don't know who needed this today. And do me a favor, if this was you, just put in the comments, I needed this. Would you share this with a friend? Would you give this to somebody who needed to hear it? But I just need you to hear that your problem is not your problem. Your problem is your solution to the problem. Your problem is your perception of the problem. Your problem is what keeps popping up as the alternative belief you're choosing instead of believing what God has said about your situation. Ooh, that's a good question. Carrie says, how do I stop beating myself up for not being more than yet? Woo! First of all, let me say this, Carrie. You stop beating yourself up by not beating yourself up. There's these moments that a person has to where, and I'm going to read the question again. I don't know how loud that was if everybody heard it, but she asked the question, how do I stop beating myself up for not being more than yet? The reality is you're not going to be more than until you're more than. Because you're more than, being more than a conqueror, that has to do with your perception. Jesus said in the word, it is finished. He already overcame death. He already overcame every problem, every trial, every situation. Jesus overcame it all. So we are already more than conquerors. So it's not that you're not more than yet, it's that you don't see it yet. And so what you have to do is just to simply stop beating yourself up. How? When you catch yourself beating yourself up, stop. It's going to be a natural reaction for most people that your negative thoughts are going to start kicking in and you're going to start saying, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that oh my gosh, this messed me up again. Well, didn't I start? Go back, Carrie, and watch the beginning of this video. And what I said at the beginning of this video was I have been overwrought by anxiety in 2025. The end of 2024 was the most anxious I've been in the last decade. I'm telling you, waking up in the morning, my wife would tell you if she was sitting here in front of the camera, all of a sudden you're looking at me and I'm just sitting, trying to breathe, trying to catch my breath, trying to stabilize, trying to get myself back together, trying to get myself refocused because my mind is racing, my soul is spiraling, and I'm losing myself. I'm telling you, I have experienced it so much in the last decade, so much in the last few months. More than any time in the last decade. And I used to be very anxious. And I used to drink and I used to get high and I used to do all kinds of stuff to deal with it. I can't turn to any of it now. And now I'm like, Lord, are you going to make this stop? And it's all been happening. In those moments, I don't feel like more than a conqueror either. But your feelings are not facts. So when I catch myself criticizing myself for being human, the moment I notice I'm doing it, I have to just simply stop. Okay, I don't like how this feels, but I don't need to beat myself up for it. I don't need to destroy myself for it. I'm a human. I'm going to feel some stuff I don't want to feel. I'm going to deal with some things I don't want to deal with. It doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me a person on a journey. And let me tell you who's not surprised by the journey you're on. God. God was not, Jesus wasn't surprised when Peter fell in. Peter starts walking across the water. And Jesus had to be thinking, now I know that as soon as he looks up at this wind, this man about to fall in, but I'm going to teach him a lesson. Maurice, why would you say that? Because he's God. What catches God off guard?
Nothing.
I got the section over here. Can you all hear her on the microphone? I don't know if you can hear her or not. Naima said, nothing. Nothing catches God off guard. So Peter falls in the water. Jesus didn't say, oh, Peter, oh, I'm so sorry. I made you walk too far. Oh, Peter, I'm sorry. I didn't know the wind and the waves were going to kick up like that. My bad. Jesus didn't say that.
No.
He said, why did you doubt? Jesus said, what you tripping on? Where'd your faith go? Jesus, you expected me to be able to walk across the water even in the midst of the wind and the waves?
Yes.
Yeah, because you were walking towards me. I'm God. If you just keep your eyes on me, you got everything you need. That's all you need. You don't need nothing else but me. So, Carrie, my answer to you is when you start beating yourself up for not being where you need to be, the first thing you have to know is that the enemy in those moments will try to tell you, oh, see, you're disappointing God. The truth is, God already knew you were going to get caught up. And he still loves you. He still will redeem you. He still will renew you. He still will restore you. God uses the trials in our life to bring the triumph and the testimony out of us. It's the things that rock us to our core and shake us in ways that are so uncomfortable that mature us in our spiritual growth. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let the perseverance finish its work, making you whole and complete, lacking nothing. Oh no, God uses the fact that you all of a sudden got shaky in a moment when you thought you were going to be stable to make you grow. To make you start looking towards him. To get you to realize that no matter how it hurts, he's still God. That no matter how many tears flow, he's still God. That no matter how weak you seem, he's still God. That no matter how many flaws of yours are exposed, he's still the flawless God. Will you look towards God instead of looking at these waves? I'm going to go back to Carrie's question. She said, how do I stop beating myself for not being more than enough? Being more than enough. Being is not about what you do. It is about who you are and the essence of who you are. Do you truly know who you are in God? I'm not talking about the thoughts that you have when you're tripping. That's your carnality. Do you know who the deepest part of your being really is? I heard Sammy in the next room over. He said, no.
That's because he was upset about the project he was doing for a school.
Oh, he's doing a school project, so that wasn't about this video. I saw Mommy was watching. I need you to hear, Carrie, that you are worth getting to know who the being is in you. We are not human doings, we are human beings. And sometimes God shows us ourselves as we heal from the wrongdoings. When we think the wrong things, when we even make some of the mistakes we make, that's when God shows us our truest character and says, hey, listen, I created you in my image. There is a God nature in you that is way more pure and whole, but you can't get there on your own. It takes God. To anybody who's listening today, if you find that you are not where you need to be, you can't just blame yourself because you think, oh, well, there's got to be a way I can figure this all out on my own. You can't figure it out.
God can.
Say it again, Naima.
God can.
She said God can. You have a God-sized gap. There's a hole on the inside of you that you're trying to fill with all these different things, but you can't fill those things without God. Some things I can't get in shape, and yes, God takes his hand on me and presses me back into shape. You can't do it without God. You're not expected to do it without God. Being more than a conqueror requires God.
You need God for everything.
Naima said, you need God for everything. My 5-year-old knows she wants to be a preacher someday. Which is funny, because when I was 5, I did not want to be a preacher.
What?
But God. But I just need you to hear this, that some things require him. Your problem is not your problem. Your problem is the ways you're trying to solve your problem. If you have the wrong solutions, your problems will persist. And if you think you have to do it all in your own strength, you will find you're never strong enough. Well, I hope this has been helpful today. I hope that you all got something out of it. Hello, Apostle Lucy. It's good to see you. I'm seeing names and faces on here. I hope you guys have all been blessed by this. If you all will do me a favor, hit the like button, share this thing. I just want to make sure somebody else gets a chance to read these words. If you haven't yet, if you've never read my book, this is a great year for you to read Your Butt is Too Big. I talk about some of these concepts in that book. I talk about my own personal growing journey and healing journey, but the real things that I get into in that book, it's the concept that if you find yourself saying, but I'm just too broken for that, but it's just too it's been too long, I've been this way too long, then you're going to need to learn to trust God, and it's a journey. I'm still on the journey. Thank God for it. Thank God for it. I just turned 41 last week. I'm not done yet. I spent time with my grandmother a couple weeks ago. My grandmother's 95 years old. You sit in front of 95 when you're 41, you see God can still just keep doing whatever he wants to do for as long as he wants to do it. And when he calls me home, then I'll go to an even better place. But I'm down for this journey. It's hard, but I'm down for it. And I believe you're down for it as well.
Miss Mo made a comment.
Okay, thank you, Naima. All right, so I want to encourage you guys. Pick up Your Butt is Too Big if you haven't yet. There's books, there's workbooks, there's prayer journals. You can get them all at mauricefmartin.com. I want to encourage you to do that. Some of you guys might need coaching. Some of you are interested in, maybe you have an organization you want to bring me in to speak. Don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. I will be back again one day this week. I don't know what day it's going to be. I stopped promising what days I'm coming. I just know that I am. So be looking for that. If anybody has prayer requests, don't hesitate to DM me. Let me know how I can pray for you, how I can encourage you. And that's it for today. I thank you for joining us on another episode of Hope Rising, where those who need hope go for that dose of hope and for all the inspiration you need in your journey. God bless you.